Hi, Chef Mark here, and another episode of Cruising in the Kitchen. Today we're going to make tiramisu, and we're going to make it in a 8x8 square pan, so you could double this recipe and use a 9x13 pan. But I'm just going to make a small amount and show you how it's done. It's very simple. Everything you need is right here. I'll go over the ingredients. This is the mise en place. Everything's ready. And I have 3 eggs, half a cup of sugar, half a cup of cream, and I have some crackers here that you want to buy in the store. And the important ingredient here is the mascarpone. It's an Italian cream cheese. You want to leave it out on your counter an hour ahead of time to let it come to room temperature, so eventually when we mix it in, it will mix in fine. But basically it's 8 ounces worth and a little vanilla. And the recipe is really easy. This is really all it is. There's some coffee in here. We're going to dip the ladyfingers in the coffee in order to make it. But basically we're making a zabaione, it's called in Italian. We're basically making an egg custard that we're going to flavor. In our case we're going to flavor it with vanilla. You could always flavor it with Kahlua, Bailey's, rum. But we're going to make it non-alcoholic and use vanilla today. There's a lot of different flavorings that people make. But basically it's an egg custard that you flavor and you layer in a pan with some cookies, with some ladyfingers. These are called ladyfingers. So I have some water over here that was boiling. It's basically warm because what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the eggs and I'm going to combine the yolks and the sugar. And I'm going to get that to a pale yellow in the machine. That's about 5 minutes or so in the machine. And then I'm actually going to temper it on the warm water to roughly 160 degrees, but basically just till my finger feels that it's hot. I'm not going to scramble the eggs. But you could do this raw, or you could temper the eggs like I'm going to do it. Choose any method you want. But I temper the eggs. I like the texture a little better. And that way, if there's anybody in the crowd, young children, old people, that have any problems eating raw eggs, you won't have that issue. In the meanwhile, the cream needs to stay cold, so I'm going to put it back in the fridge and I'll be right back. Okay, so let's start. Since I'm only making an 8x8 pan, I'm only using 3 eggs, and they need to be separated. And I'll do that for you. I always say it's easier to crack an egg on a flat surface. And this is a pretty hard shell egg, but basically, this is how I crack an egg. They make egg separators. You can do it through your fingers if your hands are clean. I just rock it back and forth. And this white piece of the egg, it's called the chalice. If you can separate that off your yolk, great. If not, oh, this one looks like it's going to come off. It's preferred. I mean, that's some of the stuff that comes out when you strain mixtures in custards. This white piece of the egg, they call it the chalice. I try to pull it off. Kind of getting a little picky, but there's one. So. Not a perfect science, but basically you just want to try to break it in half. And be able to flip it enough to break off the white and have it separated. If you don't feel comfortable doing it this way, separate your egg any way you want. Some people just do it in their hand. And let the whites fall between your fingers. Whatever way you like. I like this way. I try to break it in half. And I always save my egg whites because I can make all kinds of things with the meringues. I make egg white cookies. All kinds of things. So definitely save your whites. They'll be good in the fridge for 2 days. So there you go. I'm going to wash up and I'll be right back. Okay, the eggs are separated and we're ready to go. You can do this by hand, but I'm going to start it off in the mixer. 3 yolks and the sugar. Just Just remember that if you want a 9 by 13 pan, you use 6 yolks and twice that much sugar, 3/4 of a cup. Okay, so basically the 3 egg yolks are in here with the sugar, and it takes about 5-7 minutes for them to get pale yellow. And I just let this run, and what I'm going to do afterwards, we'll set it over this warm water and we'll temper it, and you'll see that it'll come up to temperature. Then I'll come back and I'll show you the difference in color. Right now it's yellow, which I think the camera's catching. When we come back, it's going to be a pale yellow. So it's been about 3-4 minutes. It's already turning a pale yellow. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish it by hand, and then we're going to warm it over this. A little bit. So I got the pale yellow color that I'm looking for. And I'll finish it off here. All I'm doing is warming it up. Tempers the eggs. That way, like I said, you're not eating raw eggs. And I think it helps a little bit with the texture personally, but a lot of recipes have raw eggs in it. So it's just warming up the mixture. And I'm going to flavor it after this with a little bit of coffee, 1/4 cup of coffee or so, and a little bit of vanilla. So this mixture is nice and sticky the way you want it, because this is going to, when it gets cold, this is what makes the custard solidify. And once we fold in the whipped cream later, it will have a nice velvety texture. You can already tell it's getting warmer because I can feel it getting looser on the whisk. And like I said, I don't want it too hot. I don't want to scramble this. Shut off the heat and just let it go off the steam. And you can just like put your finger in it for a second. You can get a rough idea of the temperature. Okay, it's warm. Roughly 160, 140, 150. The eggs start to get in there. Just another second or so. Just want to temper it. And then we're gonna, I'll mix it and let it cool down before we fold the whipped cream in. So we'll come back in a few minutes, and this will be all cooled down. I'm gonna take it off the heat now, as warm as I want it. And then you see it just got a little bit looser, a little bit shinier. But basically, you can eat it raw. I just do this little extra step. So it's gonna cool. We'll come back in a few minutes and we'll flavor it. Welcome back, everybody. So I've been cooling this down over the mixer. It's cool enough for me to flavor now and add the mascarpone. Because it was only 3 egg yolks, it got hot pretty quick on the stove, so it only needed a couple minutes over the heat. 6 yolks will take longer. And then when I take it off the heat, I beat it a little bit by hand, but I put it back on the mixer and I just make sure that it keeps moving and cooling down, which it is. So we'll go ahead and add the flavorings of the mascarpone. It's an Italian cream cheese. They said it has double the fat of regular cream cheese. So there is quite a difference between this and cream cheese. And you just want to scoop it all out. And we'll put in a half a teaspoon of vanilla or so in here as well. And we'll be exact, and we'll use a measuring spoon. There's your vanilla. And I'm going to put a couple tablespoons of the coffee that I'm going to use. Just a couple tablespoons to flavor it up. basically this is our egg mixture, the custard. I'll finish it off by hand. And we're going to fold the whipped cream into it. So there you go. So it's a flavored. This is a vanilla coffee based custard. Obviously I could use espresso instead of the coffee. This is very strong coffee, but you could also, a couple tablespoons of espresso would be fine. Any flavor you want. And the vanilla was there instead of the alcohol. So basically now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold in the whipped cream and we'll start the whole assembly. The assembly is the fun part. Just to note though, there are some recipes that instead of whipped cream, I've seen recipes that fold in the egg whites, that, you know, they whip up the egg whites and they use that instead. So if you want a little bit less rich of a dessert, but still really ethereal and creamy, you could always fold in those 3 egg whites after whipping them. I chose whipped cream. I like that flavor and it's the way I normally make it. So I have a bowl in the refrigerator with the cup of cream that we had before, a clean bowl, and it's cold, which will help beat the cream. And we'll beat the cream, we'll fold it in, and then we start assembling and building up our little tiramisu to make it look like the one on the package. And I'm going to wash the beater and get the milk. Be right back. So we're back. I got my cold bowl from the refrigerator, and it's summer here, so that's even more important than normal. And we're going to whip up the cream. There's enough sugar in this already. This isn't a super sweet dessert. It's a very rich dessert, but it's certainly less than half a cup of sugar is in the whole recipe. So there goes the cream. And we'll whip it up and we'll fold it in and we'll start assembling this. It also whips faster when the bowl is colder, so you have less chance of breaking the cream and causing an issue with it. If the cream's not cold and the bowl's not cold, you have a good chance of the cream not really coming to the kind of stiff peaks that you want it to. Almost there. Always best to shut it off a little bit before it's finished and finish it off by hand. Otherwise it goes too long, you run into the risk of making butter. It'll separate. So, finish it off by hand. There we go. Stiff peaks. And we'll just fold this into our custard mixture. Good to the last drop too. There you go. That's how you want it. So, gently fold. And now we have our custard that's ready to be laid upon our lady fingers soaked in the coffee. And pretty much that's the hardest part of the whole recipe, because the cookies you buy, the coffee you make ahead, it's just coffee. This is the whole technique of the recipe right here. It smells really good. You can really smell the vanilla. So, coffee. Something good and strong. And these cookies are really good, but if you leave them in too long, they turn to mush. So I would, there's a happy medium of how much liquid you want inside of them. But I would say 2 seconds aside, and boom, put it in. That was almost too much. But if you don't do it enough, you want them soggy just with a teeny bit of crunch. And these have some sweetness to them too. And we're going to do 2 layers and put the custard in between. So the 3 egg yolk recipe is nice for 2 people. 9 by 3 for a family. Use the regular 6 egg yolk recipe. Give you some options. These you can buy at an Italian store, but you can find them in some of the better grocery stores. But that's the most common brand of ladyfingers in this area. And this is the more common mascarpone I tend to see in this area. It's the mascarpone I find that's more difficult to find. Because some people even have it and it's not super fresh. So you don't want that, obviously. And you're saying to yourself, how's he going to do this? Well, you got to play with your food a little bit. So there you go. How hard is that? You make it fit if it doesn't fit. Put another one in this corner even? Yeah, I think I can. More the merrier. And I need another half cookie. Then you just open these as you need them. You use most of them for the 9 by 13 version. I'll use about half probably for this. So there's one layer. You really want to get them in there. And then you want to split this mixture in half. Make sure it's all homogenized there. Half down. Start with that. And a flat spatula, if you have one. An offset spatula rather. Can be useful for this purpose. So you just do your thing here. Get it even all the way. Remember, it's super rich. I'm going to go just a little double more. It's not an exact science, you just do the best you can. And this is all going to solidify in the fridge. So when you cut your slice, there'll be one nice slice. And sprinkling cocoa on top, or sprinkling powdered sugar, or I think you see it in restaurants mostly with the cocoa. But this is all it is. It's a soaked ladyfinger in coffee. Or, you know, this could also be flavored with some Kahlua, Bailey's. But basically, it's a soaked ladyfinger. Then we do another layer. Takes about a cup and a half of coffee, I think, or so, to soak these. Yeah, it solidifies really good in the fridge. A couple hours. It makes nice slices. I think the cream is super easy to make. It's not intimidating once you're good at separating eggs. It's just a matter of mixing it until they become pale. And either cooking it for a little bit over some heat or just eating them raw. You get farm eggs for sure, you don't have to worry about them as much. Just get a little bit more coffee. Coffee can be room temp as well. It doesn't have to be quite hot like this. It just happens to be hot because it was in the thermos. So the coffee could be made ahead. You could use iced coffee, whatever. So what was I doing? Something like this. And it looks like we need a few more. So we're looking in our package. And these are really good to dip in your coffee or hot chocolate if you have extras. Just saying. So, good enough. Put this out of the way and finish decorating. You know, you worked hard beating for it. Takes a lot of muscle if you don't have a machine. And this, like I said, will solidify real nice in the fridge. And we'll put the cocoa over it, and it will kind of like hide any imperfections or a little bit of a mess here and there, but this one looks pretty good. So the cream is rich with the whipped cream and the mascarpone in it. And this will probably serve 4 good slices. So this is how I'm going to put it in the fridge, and then when it comes out in a couple hours I'll sprinkle cocoa on it before I serve it, and I'll take a picture of what the slice looks like with all the layers and everything else. So there you go, tiramisu. Tiramisu for 2, for 4, depending how you like it. Like I said, double the recipe for the 9x13 pan. Certainly any suggestions or anything you guys want to see, feel free to add that on the YouTube and ask any questions you have about it. But basically, this is a tiramisu, and I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.